Now, what you get is that the time doesn't depend anymore on message C that you put in, but on something you don't know, something that's been multiplied by a random. So your timing attack will fail. And at the end, you just divide the random out of the equation again, and you get your encrypted message, or decrypted message, in this case decrypted, in a way that you can't determine timing of this algorithm. Now, there are also ways to do this with the exponent, which again helps with the SPA attack, for instance. Okay. Yes, I'm winding down. So these were a couple of examples. What you see here, and actually the examples you've seen here, I made them only today. I was a bit late. And I already this morning ran into troubles because my SPA didn't work. I couldn't see it. The implementation that I had originally for the RSA already didn't have a real SPA. There was a difference between the multiply and the square, but it was only something like 10 microseconds on 400. So you didn't even visually see it. So I had to modify my program and put in a lot of garbage to make it like a big difference so that you could now see on the screen that there was a square and a multiply. So what does it mean? That means that when you're doing some things in software, you basically have no idea what's happening on the device. You have to measure and to verify what's actually happening. And it goes for inserting vulnerabilities, like I was doing this morning, but it also goes for fixing vulnerabilities. So if you're concerned for something like this, you do have to do your own measurements, or you have to have someone look at it to know what's happening. Actually, in the banking business, for instance, there's a lot of certification in this area. Bank cards are certified. FIPS 140-3 is just out. Actually now also for certain levels requires that you do a sidechain analysis. So it's a way to verify that you're doing the right thing. I've been talking a lot about countermeasures, and one thing to note about this, and maybe it's a little bit peculiar because you don't see this much in a wider area in the security space, but countermeasures and even the attacks in this area have been patented by CRI, a San Francisco company, which is actually founded by the more or less discoverer, or at least publisher of these attacks in the mid-90s. So if you're implementing or want to have countermeasures in your systems concerning this, then it's good to check with them, because they do have implementations already for this. They looked into them, but also licensing issues may be involved there. So they have a lot of patents on their website that have useful information, like the protocol that I showed, more of those, and also about blinding RSA, for instance. And then it's time to wrap up. Well, my main conclusions is that with the increase of security features in embedded systems, the sidechain attack will gain in importance and will be maybe one of the more likely attack paths compared to, well, the more manual work that we've seen in the past. A lot of these chipsets do not yet contain specific countermeasures against such attacks. Even companies making smart cards and more complex chips, smart cards with a lot of advanced countermeasures, do not put countermeasures in the chipsets that you'll find in set-top boxes or mobile phones or whatever. So if you're developing for that, take that in mind. Well, we've shown that it works, so it is a threat. But when you have, as a software developer, are aware of ways to implement your countermeasures, you can make it a lot more difficult for attackers to actually do them on your device. And basically, that ends my presentation. Any questions? Yeah, all the way in the back. Ah, that's a good question. How much faster does the sample rate need to be than the clock frequency of the chip. That really depends, but it doesn't need to be faster, actually. So in this case, we're sampling with 200 mega samples, but only 100 megahertz bandwidth, a chip that's running at 150 megahertz. We've even seen cases where, for instance, the RSA operation in software on a 300 megahertz or 200 megahertz system actually is only running at a couple of kilohertz with the multiply and square operations. So if you can see them, you can even find them at a much lower frequency. So the frequency that the operation that operates with the secret key is at can be much lower than the chipset frequency. But for smart cards, where we do with a lot of countermeasures, with high-level attacks, we can easily be at, we have scopes going to 10 gigasamples for things that only run at 10 megahertz and still get information from that. So you do want to be faster if you can be faster.
Are there a lot of vulnerable, naive RSA implementations out there?
Yes. Yes, almost everyone that just starts out does it wrong. That's basically, OpenSSL even had a blinded RSA, I think, that was not good. So even after they did the blinding, there was still a timing attack. So there's always countermeasures that make it more difficult, and countermeasures that make it, more or less impossible. In general, the countermeasures that make it a bit harder are the ones that aren't even implemented. So those are the ones that should be implemented at least.
What about looking at hardware applications? Very different?
In hardware, there is a difference because hardware often does a lot of things in parallel. So, for instance, the S-boxes, they will be calculated at once. However, the leakage still is proportional, to all those 6 or 8 S-boxes. Only the leakage is less, so you need to make more measurements. Also, it's faster, so you need faster sampling times. So that's also an important factor there. What we see is that also that hardware countermeasures are often really, really effective already. So in the chipset, in the smart card business, it's already a big fight against only hardware countermeasures. So they could have fully, simple, straightforward implementation in there, and just the hardware countermeasures around it are so difficult already that it becomes much, much harder than something like this. All the way in the back? Okay, so the trade-off between the countermeasure and how it impacts the performance. Well, there definitely is that impact. So it's always a choice by the manufacturers in how much they weigh that. And also, often they are all full configurable by the developers. So you still have influence as a developer how you want to do it. For instance, they also have like noise or full power only for the crypto operation and turn it off again. Things like that to balance it out. I've no time left, so you have to come up to me and ask me directly. Thank you.